All right, boys and girls. So here's the deal. I don't like surprises. Nobody likes surprises. The biggest problem with human beings and our nature is reactivity. Whenever somebody changes anything without warning or change, it sucks. The fact of the matter is that for business reasons, we had a surprise launch of this website. We didn't tell anybody that we were doing a redesign. We kept it very secret for a while. And the rollout did not go as planned. We have a hobby site here, as everybody knows, and we are professionalizing it, but at the same time, we don't really have a dedicated QA department. So what we had to do here, the story of the last week and a half of development chaos on TMC, is essentially that we created a completely new website. This was something that Jaron Kell pulled off, but we had to port over all the content from the old website. Now, the old website was essentially coded by amateur hobbyists rather than professionals, and that's just the way of the world. We had a script to import all of the content over into the new website, and unfortunately, as that script ran, there were some unexploded pieces of ordnance, I suppose is the best way to describe it, that proceeded to basically blow up in the development team's face, and that pretty much spent the last week frantically working to deal with that. Meanwhile, our user base was unhappy because we had the surprise launch, and then so that's pretty much what happened there.
Bottom line, guns. Goons are bad.
Goons are bad, it's true. We are
bad
at EVE Online. I think the sound that people are hearing is like possibly somebody's shifting in their chair or something like that. Okay, so what I want to talk about is the new site, and after I finish running my mouth, I'm pretty much going to hand it over to Jaron and Prague to discuss things. First of all, I mean, in the future, we should just say we're sorry. Right, we're sorry. Surprises suck.
So sorry.
We are very, very sorry. We screwed this up. Part of that screw up is the choice that we made. It was a decision to launch as a surprise. Right, if we had let you guys know that we were going to do this in advance, it wouldn't have been so annoying. We aimed for a surprise success at FanFest, and then because we don't really have a dedicated QA team, as soon as we did this, it was chaos. What we have here with this site and this design that's going to be, I think, pretty interesting for people is something that we're going to be rolling out very soon. I think possibly within the next couple of days. Jaron, what's the story on the theme selector? Can I talk about the theme selector? Are we?
Yeah, you can talk about the theme selector. That's one of the things that's in progress right now.
Okay.
Right now, we're fixing a lot of the display issues with mobile and a variety of responsive issues.
Okay.
And then the theme is going to be slotted in right after that.
Yeah. So web development is hell. And one of the things I want to talk again before I turn it over to Tech Talk and let you guys at my poor developers who this is really not their fault. It's pretty much entirely my fault.
You can blame me. It's pretty much my fault for bamboozling the whole of the staff and just taking you away on a magic carpet ride of Photoshop experiments.
A magic carpet ride.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine to call it what it is. Yeah.
Well, the thing about this is Goonfleet.com a while ago, for many years, Goonfleet.com was on, I believe, vBulletin or OneForm software, and we had all sorts of themes, and we even had a theme selector, and we all liked it because Goons could, for our own forums, create their own themes, submit them, and then if the CSS worked, people could basically choose their own website. So one of the things that always annoyed me about the old TMC website was, one, the fact that it wasn't a responsive design, which means looking at my own site on my phone was a nightmare. And the web has moved on. Responsive is just a requirement from Google. You have to have a responsive design now if you want your site to not get basically blacklisted on a search engine. And two, I didn't like the fact that it always looked the same. One of the most common complaints that we would get for TMC 1.0, this is what I call the old site as 1.0, TMC 1.0, people would say, a lot of people, it's hard for them to read. They don't like the fact that it's white on black text. I liked that art, I liked that style personally, but everybody has their own different style. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is that there's obviously going to be many more tweaks in terms of the grid layout and with the sort of masonry design of TMC 2.0, but very soon we have a whole host of themes that you will be able to select, and so basically you can make the TMC site look like whatever the hell you want, because you'll be able to just go like, oh, out of these options, I think we have at least, I think it's like 5 to 7 initial theme selection options for the first launch of this, and then you'll pretty much be able to go through that and pick and choose your own thing. So that's going to be interesting. I think there's just a lot of opportunities with it, but we're going to go ahead and shift out of me explaining what the hell happened here. Do we want to have Jaren talk about dev stuff, or do we want to have Prague talk about the design process? Why don't we put Prague on deck, because he's all dark and mysterious there with his EVE Online cave.
It's my camera. It's adjusting the exposure automatically.
He's hacking our Gibson right now. He looks like he's a movie hacker. He's gonna get a keyboard and go like, I'm in the bank account right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, pretty much. I put a talking puppet here so I can just deflect the blame and go off and shoot spaceships while you guys yell at the Prague for redesigning your favorite site. No, again, I mean, it's a tricky situation because a lot of my designs, they were made over a period of time. They basically started out as shit, I'm so bored of this TMC.com site, but I love to read it. And as people in my industry always say, like, the best way to complain is to do something. And, you can't just sit and bitch about stuff. You actually have to, get out of your comfort zone and design something or shoot somebody. And that being the complaint, I designed a mock-up for the TMC back in, I think, November last year. We didn't do much about it. I think the only people who actually liked it, because initially it came from me being bored, and then you put out some sort of competition for redesigning it.
We had a contest for redesign.
I think, and then the only guy who really weighed in on it properly was Blarf, who said he liked it, and I think that was it. And 2 months down the 2 months down the road, I had made a whole bunch of spaceships designs, basically trying to apply the EVE look and feel onto a website. So we stuck with the black, we stuck with the dark theme, and well, it was sort of a radical vision, because I wanted to make something that was a lean back experience, something you will read on a tablet. Just enjoy a long minute post about something that takes you, 10, 15 minutes to read, and you don't want any distractions, you don't want any banners blinking or any sort of boring white Windows backgrounds taking you out of your spaceship experience. And that is a radical thing to do, especially to a site that was sort of, straight to the point. TMC was all about the article content, not so much about this design. Pretty much like Reddit is, and the fact that people have gotten used to Reddit and the micro forum format makes it so hard for us people that want to put to put color around the lines and actually put graphics back into the reading experience. So in a way, we're stuck in between a rock and a hard place here, where people have been sort of spoiled in being able to customize their experience, being able to have a say in it, and expect rapid turnaround based on their complaints. So we never expected this to be an easy trip. I feel a bit. I put a lot of heavy stuff on the developers, because the stuff I gave them to develop and to actually implement on the site was quite heavy. It's sort of, I mean, I still think about it as good web standards, because I do this for a living. It's not something I pull out of my ass. It's actually a pretty common format for a site like this that I've applied to many portal sites, with the exception of having such a scrutinizing community, I suppose, looking over our shoulders and actually, calling our names and holding us responsible for the the outcome. Which I mean, usually. Right? Yeah, exactly. So usually I have an army of producers and project managers to fend off the angry crowds of the sites I borg and redesign. But in this case, I'm much more part of the community, and it feels, while a lot of the criticism is off base and is based on a half finished implementation of the designs, a lot of it is, of course, humbling, because so much comes from my friends in the community that holds me personally responsible for taking apart the site and putting it back together again, according to my wicked brain.
Wicked brain. Well, actually, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about feedback, because I really want to illustrate. So a couple things, guys. A few seconds ago in chat, I dropped the feedback about, actually, Prague has written a design blog on medium.com and explains a lot of the really interesting sort of things that we're looking at doing and how this process worked. So talking about feedback and how to provide feedback, there are two types of feedback in general. There's useful feedback, and then there's screaming. Now, I essentially didn't look at any feedback for the first 3 days because I knew that due to all the stuff that we imported from the script, that the website was essentially on fire and that Jaren was running around having to fix things, as was Prague. These guys have basically not slept for the last week, and it kind of shows. But when people are being reactive because humans hate change, the initial feedback is, I got surprised by something, I'm hurt that I was surprised by something, and I am angry, and this sucks. That doesn't help us at all. An example of good feedback is stuff that says, I don't like whatever. And so I'm actually going to paste this into chat here. This is from Nominate and from Casimir, which is, I think, a good example of the kind of stuff that is actionable. So Nominate is saying that this is good feedback. The current design can be drastically improved by using aligned rows, adding the summary to the stories, and bringing back info boxes. He also says that he doesn't like the banner at the top of the new TMC because it's very 1990s. He likes the top-level nav bar, and then there's discussion about realigning the grid and all this other stuff. And so that's actually actionable stuff. So if you want to come to this roundtable and basically just say, you suck, revert the site, and there was obviously this kind of campaign of people just going like, change it back, change it back, change it back, and that's not happening. I mean, it's just not. We are improving and adjusting the site, but there's, oh, it looks like we lost Prague's webcam there briefly. He's coming back. But there's many of the features that were on the site for the first version that are now being added back into it as we go forward. And we would really like to have the kind of feedback that nominate that kind of feedback, right? I want this changed. I have found this that's broken. Most of the stuff that's broken is currently getting adjusted. The RSS feed is coming back. I'm seeing a lot of comments in chat about how people want an RSS feed. That was a core feature of our original site. That's just a thing you have to have. You have to have an RSS feed. So we're going to do that. And apparently everybody really likes the way that Prague looks. Prague is apparently quite the hottie. He's got possibly some Swedish good looks or something. I'm not entirely sure.
My webcam just got toasted because that's how hot it is.
Exactly, exactly. So we're going to have a still image of him looking good. All right, so let's go ahead and now that we've told people how to provide the feedback, please go ahead and keep it coming. Jaren, why don't you go ahead and go over? I want to hear the horror stories of putting out the fires and what all you've been up to for the last week and a half of your life. Let's hear the story from your end of taking Prague's design and what all happened.
Totally. And there's a lot of that, and I really I don't want to overwhelm the entire thread with that kind of stuff. Some of the notes that I've been seeing are due to triage decisions that we made at the very last moment, like the issue. A lot of people have said that they don't like the uneven heights in the masonry. That was a triage issue. That's something that we decided at the last minute due to time considerations. And if you guys check out the design blog post that Prague put up today, you'll see actually what the goal is to attain there, okay, which is actually not an uneven height sort of masonry thing, but more of a tight snapping grid, and that's one of the things that we're working on at the moment to implement. One of the other challenges that we had building the site, and one of the things that a lot of people didn't like, was the top image treatments on the pages. One of the things with that is we were restricted to using imagery that we already had saved in the databases from the previous articles. And as you may know or may not know, there's over 3,000 articles in the database. And so at that point, what we were trying to do is reuse those elements and make them attractive, since obviously we were not going to have time to go through and have 3,000 different graphic elements treated by, a design pro to make them all look right and make them all look fit. So we tweaked them as much as we could to get those in. And if you've noticed over the last week, we've been backporting some changes and fixes into the site on a continual basis, which is kind of one of the things about the way we want to work. We do listen to feedback, believe it or not. And what Mittens was saying is really the case. The substantive feedback in terms of, hey, I don't like this because it does this, and maybe we should try this and this, that's great stuff, right? That's great stuff. The howling and such, I mean, that's going to happen regardless.
Well, you have to roll with the punches there, because that's our community, and that's the way we communicate with each other. We shoot each other in the face, whether it be in spaceships or, Chat rooms. That's just the internet of late, and I've sort of grown to accept it. It's, you know, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that everybody has opinions, and there are some people who, like, we have a very diverse community, and that's one of the interesting things about EVE Online. On one end of things, you have people who are, you know, relatively, I guess you might say, artistic people who have a lot of visual aesthetics. You know, there are people who are interested in politics. There's people who's interested in you know, the art of EVE. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people who really are into spreadsheets, and the sort of person who is into spreadsheets plays EVE. A sort of person who is really into certain types of aesthetics is also into EVE. And it's very difficult to have a design that will appease both. Now, our intention has always been to have a theme selector, essentially, that will allow people to choose what they want. So we have an extremely minimalistic theme for people who are into that sort of thing, that you can strip things down. We have a black text on white theme.
For the people that never log in, basically, that's...
Exactly. You know, I don't know, we could have, if somebody wants to submit as a gimmick an Excel spreadsheet as a site design, that's great, and we'll go ahead and put that in there. Somebody was asking in chat, and I just want to address this pretty quickly, if we knew that there were going to be problems or something, why didn't we, you know, delay the launch or whatever? Why did we launch it in a rushed way? Well, that's the joy of web dev. When we imported all the stuff in the script, these unexploded landmines were unknown until we flicked the switch and everything went because, so here's the way this works. We're going to get into like nitty-gritty dev land here for a moment. TMC runs on a Drupal platform. Drupal is a content management system, a CMS. Drupal is kind of like the Linux of CMSs. People, when they think of CMSs, they're thinking like WordPress, right? Anybody can make a WordPress blog in like 15 minutes and it's no problem at all. Drupal is kind of like a nuclear reactor, and it's based upon things called modules, which are sort of copy and paste open source things that do different things on the site. Now I'm mangling this, and Jaren is going to try to not like murder me. I'm not a web guy, but the point is that TMC 1.0 had a lot of custom modules with interesting bits of code that did things that were not part of the normal system. At which point, when we ran the script and ported things over, we wanted to have a FanFest launch and we wanted to have a nice surprise. Then we had the FanFest launch, and then it was pretty much cleanup. I mean, it sucks. You can question the decision. Obviously, it didn't work out very well for us in terms of surprising the community. But, you know, we can either deny that something happened, or we can say, whoops, we're going to try to not have any surprises in the future and incorporate community feedback and move on. So that's where we are. And so now I'm going to hand the floor back to Jaren. He's going to tell us how it went down. Prague is, of course, a completely black screen right now because his webcam has decided to die.
Yeah, we could have we could have blobbed it, but we just went in with a few scouts. That's pretty much it. You guys don't even play. You don't even get my EVE references anymore because you guys don't log in. We could have done this the easy way and just blobbed the whole thing with 1,000 people.
Well, I would like to blob it. I mean, we've got a whole staff now. Actually, we've really kind of spun all that up. But I'm looking at the chat feedback right now, and I don't like it when Mittens talks technical, says our devs. He's meant to be fuzzy, not a massive nerd. I'm not really talking technical. I'm really annoying the crap out of the people here who have brought on the show that can talk technical, and the words I'm using are scary, and I don't actually understand them. But there you go. All right, so back to Jaren.
So anyway, to get into the whole thing, the site is a very complex site, as Drupal sites go even. Just the amount of custom code that we have in the site, especially stuff that we're currently porting into the site, because as I mentioned before, we're trying to do a rolling feature launch on this where we're going to be pushing new features out to you guys on a regular basis so the site isn't static. In terms of the customization stuff that you guys are looking for, yeah, as Mittens was saying, you know, we're going to do a variety of templates based off this one to begin with, the designs that Prague have done and expanded after that. And in fact, for the people that are looking for a super minimal template, that's fine too. We can push that sort of thing out. It's not really that hard. I saw in chat that somebody was complaining about the RSS feeds being down on the site. That's actually a new thing, and they were up, they were down, they were up. And I have a feeling at this point, due to the DDoS and various things we had over the last couple of days, that's probably what knocked those out. So that'll be a priority for getting that back up. I do understand that a lot lot of people use RSS readers and syndicate in their clients, and we do want to take care of that as rapidly as possible. In terms of the notes on responsive and text line signs and sizes and things like that I've seen, there's very specific reasons for why space is being used as space is being used. I really don't want to retread them because, again, if you look at
I can cut it with that. I mean,
I was just going to say, so go look at the link, man. You know.
Yeah. Well, if you look at any contemporary long format site, which pretty much has a line length of 10 to 12 words, because that's just science telling us that that's how far we can focus before we need to change lines. And you can just pick up any old book and you see the same type of format. Of course, that leaves us with a lot of space on the sides. But again, the ambition was never to sort of bombard you with blinking banners on the sides or links to too many related articles, because you want to finish the article you're reading before you move on. And of course, the ambition as such is, with all this space we have, apart from it being really, really helpful when we scale down to smaller devices that don't have the space, someone actually asked me why the site looks so shit on his 4K monitor maximized browser, and I was stunned for a moment, because I was trying to picture the scenario where I would maximize my browser on a 4K screen and expect any website to work with that much space. But anyway, long story short, I mean, the size. The article length, line length is according to good standards. We got some space to play with, so we can actually put more media in there, give the writers more options to actually publish more lifelike, cool-looking articles with more images and more inline video. But again, it's an article, and focusing on it is important. Some of the feedback was that a typical Eve player or TMC reader has a lot of actions per minute, or actions per second, rather, to use a StarCraft term, and they are used to being bombarded with a dashboard style of control. And while we of course want to give people the option to click on 100 different links on TMC at the same time, we also want to cater to the part of our audience that likes to lean back and read a good article without being interrupted. So that's that on the article. Sorry, back to you, man.
Well, one of the things, actually, I'm going to just interject here because I'm seeing some interesting feedback in chat. One of the things about web design and discussing web pages is that people feel that their feedback isn't being incorporated, because people will say, well, like what Prague just said is people use the site like this. And then somebody in chat was saying, well, I use the site like this, and why aren't you taking that feedback into account? First of all, again, multiple different styles of site. We're going to basically have a whole bunch of different ways that you can do it, and we will probably have a method where you can submit to us via email your own specs for what you'd like to see in a TMC theme. We can just get it on there, assuming it fits our specs and works with the site. But the second thing is that in all these discussions of what we're doing, this is not just us pulling this out of our ass. This is based on data, analytics, and best practices that people have done A/B testing on in terms of the industry, right? So, you might be the guy who is still looking at our website on IE6, right? But when we look at the data and we're making all these decisions and things like that, there's a lot of browsers that we don't support. We don't support IE6. We just made that there's like half of 1% of the population still uses that, and in order to try to make the site work with that, it's just a nightmare. So, I mean, yes, it's true that in terms of the triage, since we have launched the website with the design, we do not currently have a design that works with people who are going to be reading the site full screen on a 4K monitor. That's true. That's absolutely true. But there's like
no one
3 people who do that. I mean, no, somebody does it. Obviously, we got the feedback that somebody does it, but that guy is a lower priority than the vast majority of our users. Now,
that guy may or may not be Solace Angel.
Exactly. So, like, one of the things that we need to talk about, I think, is what you see on the site right now is actually So, Jaron, why don't you just go through everything that you've changed and adjusted on the site? It's a huge number of things since the launch on FanFest, because I think a lot of people aren't really aware of all the things that we have bolted on and fixed and the fires that have been put out.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of that sort of deal. We have been listening to the comments that have been coming in from the guys, because it really does. It's one of those things, the substantive comments and things, it really does matter to us, and it is something we do listen to regardless. One of the issues initially was due to the implementation of the top images. The legibility and the read were criticized, and there were some valid points to that. That was one of those late night decisions, and we changed that almost immediately. Right now, the images at the top of the pages only are at the top of the pages, not behind the text, which is one of the things that a lot of people were complaining about. We also adjusted the dominant fonts on the pages so as to increase the read in general. We've swapped that around completely, and at this point, I think that works pretty well. In terms of the comments about white space and use of space, some of these things we can work with, some of these things we are changing right now. Me and my guys are actually currently in the middle of the next go round on this site, which is going to include an improved responsive nav, improved top navs, and restructuring some of the grids to give us more space to do more things, as well as additional breakpoints which will handle some of the larger resolutions that people would like to have. So instead of having the site like this, we'll be having a bit more of the site like that. I still can't, I can't guarantee a perfect, lovely alignment and layout in a 4K monitor, but unless you're going to have 100% liquid with just simple stuff in there, you pretty much can't anyway. That is something in terms of liquid orientations and pure data outputs that we would be open to. For instance, in conjunction with the theme switcher we've talked about in the past, we could do a very simple layout, even simpler than the stuff that we've done right now. There have been some comments where I think some people kind of expect everything to be like a low-res, text-only liquid layout, which personally I'd rather avoid because it ends up looking a little ugly, if you agree with me. But it's something we can definitely look at doing. Really, our job is to make the site as good for you guys as possible, to make it as easy for you to get the information you want off the site and do a nice presentation. I mean, personally, I'm with Prague in terms of the line length and stuff like that. I think the line length is fine, but I can see, especially with the internet culture and people that use forums a lot, people use Reddit a lot, and these sort of things where we've got 100% liquid layout, I can see why they say, oh, I missed this. Oh, why aren't you using spacebed? Right. But the thing with that is it's not always about packing as much data into the space as possible. And in fact, one of the big design concepts in Prague's blog is Prague's design is really giving things breathing room, because you do need that. You do need breathing room. If you have too many elements and you have everything cacked in there, it becomes a big visual mess. And that's one of the things.
You don't have to look far for good examples. I mean, just go to New York Times and look at the long form articles. Look at The Verge. Look at Pitchfork. Look at everybody pretty much who's doing a good thing. Not biased here. Yeah. And see what they're doing, and you'll see pretty much just the exact same formula applied. And that is not saying we're not going to give you a Craigslist theme. We might.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want, if somebody, here's the thing: is that oftentimes in terms of feedback and in terms of everything in leading an alliance in Eve, there are some people who have a very strong, very loud opinion about basically anachronisms. They liked the way that the internet was a while back. They don't like responsive design in the first place. They don't like masonry. They don't like this, that, or the other thing. And when there's a change or an advancement in any sort of way, they scream bloody murder. And we are always, and this is just a thing, we will try to accommodate everyone in terms of a triage basis, in terms of the most of our users, the most of their pleasure, based upon data. I'm a big guy on evidence-based everything. If the data supports that people are using the site more in a certain way, we're going to aim our design in that way. And we'll be adding, the theme situation allows people for the sort of the fringe attitudes about what they like. If you really want to have, if you're there's so aside here, it might sound like this is going to be a totally random story, but we're going to do it because I'm running the show and I get to do this. And it involves George R. R. Martin, of all people. So talking about people who hate change in general, in fact, one of our old themes on the Goonfleet.com forums was hate change, because after we had to change the themes, people got very angry. There are some people who have gone through and resurrected emulators for both WordPerfect 5.0 and even WordStar. Now, a lot of you were born before WordStar even existed, but back in the dark ages, when I was a kid, before before Microsoft Word, before everything in terms of word processors, there was this tedious old MS-DOS word processor called WordStar, and my father loves it because he's old, and a lot of other people who are in his generation loved WordStar. And when we shifted to WordPerfect, there's a lot of people liked WordPerfect. and then went to Microsoft Word, and people got really angry about that. So there's these like microculture cults on the internet of people who are creating emulators for WordStar and WordPerfect. And what does this have to do with George R. R. Martin? George R. R. Martin actually still has written Game of Thrones on WordStar. I'm not making that up. Which is amazing to me, but again, knowing my father, not a huge surprise. So and these guys have very strong opinions. They love WordStar so much that they have created a cult on the internet. They're holding MS-DOS emulators. Some of them just keep their old like 286s and 386s around so they can use WordStar. And they're very loud. We are not designing the website for the people who use WordStar still. If you're one of those guys and you're just really angry about it, we'll hope to eventually get you a theme.
Well, I mean, cut us some slack, because not only that, we have to adapt to a changing media climate, both in the way we make money with the site to actually keep it running, and the fact that advertisers put a lot of pressure on people like us. And we have to accommodate for everybody, basically, because if it wasn't for us moving and adapting with because the game news site is a quickly, rapidly changing landscape.
That is actually something that we should probably touch on. There is a tremendous competition and pressure in the games media, because essentially games media, the business model, I don't want to get too into this, but everybody can see it now. There are standards. Basically what Google has done is by applying data into A/B testing to design. A/B testing, for people who don't know what it is basically Google showed 20,000 different shades of the color blue for their buttons for different users on Google, just to test with the data and the metrics to find the precise shade of blue for a particular button. So basically, people have ground through the science of what people actually like and use on the web. They might think they like one thing, but they do something completely different. Now the idea that you might do something that you think you don't like might be very offensive to some people. People might think that, well, you know, I'm the master of my own destiny and I understand my own psychology or what have you. But the hard fact is that by now, in 2015, the data and the metrics have changed the way that people design the internet. And because Google has changed things, and these reflections of what is just best practices, data-backed, A/B tested, scientific design of what works and what doesn't, these standards are then promulgated across the entire web. And if you have a site that's from 2012 and doesn't use those standards, you take a hit in search engine optimization. Google says, your site sucks, you're not using any of these best practices, we're not getting as much value for our clients, we're going to send our clients to other websites. So, you know, you can fight against the tide as much as you want, but that's just the hard reality of it. And if that makes you angry, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that I can tell you that will make you not be angry. There you go.
The fields get shot down like Black Legion dreads on the Underdark.
Oh yeah, there's a Suicide Dreads reference. That's kind of interesting. So yeah, basically, like almost. I mean, when we came here to do this, like I really wanted to. We didn't have it ready in time. We will probably have it ready within a very short period of time, probably the next few days. You know, a lot of the feedback about I don't like this aspect of the design, or I don't like this theme, or I don't like that theme. I think a lot of that can simply be incorporated with the theme selector. Now, if you want to give us feedback, if you want to send us direct useful feedback of I'd like this changed, or I have this idea for a theme, or even better, if you would like to give us some UI UX concepting of your idea of a kind of theme, or links to examples of a kind of website that you really like that's popular, you know, send us an email to staff@thematani.com. I'll go ahead and type it here in chat, staff@thematani.com, and you can send us what you'd like to see in a theme, and that way we can make sure that your reasonable feedback isn't lost, and we can, so somebody was asking a while back also, why are we even using Drupal instead of WordPress? This is exactly why, is because it's a lot easier for us to both scale Drupal from a IT perspective as the site grows, because the site does keep growing. That's one of the things, one of the reasons why we use data-based feedback, is people were saying, there's like some screaming Redditor going, oh my god, like you've killed your site, nobody's going to your site anymore ever since you did a redesign. And that's not true. The traffic is actually up pretty significantly since we did the redesign. So, like, we will listen to feedback, but first and most importantly, I will always go to the data, because mob rule only gets you so far. If I listen to crowd feedback without looking at data, I wouldn't have ever been able to lead an alliance out of a wet paper bag, much less get it out of Syndicate and take over the Northwest. So there you go.
Can't let the mob get in the way of good taste.
Absolutely.
Sorry. All right.
So let's go ahead and take some questions, or Jaron, do you
there's just one more thing that I wanted to touch base on, because I noticed a number of people in the chat have mentioned about the ads, about where the ads go and how the ads look and things like that. And I've responded in chat twice now. I just want to make it clear to everybody that that is one of those things that we're still working on right now, and what you're seeing at the moment is not a final implementation. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, basically, a lot of the reason why I wanted Jaron to go through and talk about all the things that he's done and added to the site is because I think that people who are listening to this had a perception that the site that you got on on Saturday at FanFest, which was on fire and broken, is the site that you have today. It's not, and in fact, a lot of the what is going to happen over the next week is a radical series of changes as we are essentially backfilling all the things that we had to cut out after things exploded at the launch. So we're going to take a couple questions. I just want to talk to you guys. I think we've pretty much said everything that there is to be said without responding to questions about why we did, what went wrong, and what we're doing going forward. I want to talk about how we're not going to make the same mistake in the future, because that's really it. We learned here of the dangers of a surprise launch. We also are shifting in terms of the website from a hobbyist site to a much more professional organization. I mean, Jaron runs a Drupal consultancy professionally. Prague is a professional UI UX designer with a huge list of awards. He's top tier.
Now I got a new title now. It's Website Fucker Upper.
Website Fucker Upper. That's going on your resume.
That's Reddit. Yeah.
So the interesting thing here is that we don't, as we shift through this, we didn't have a QA team, we didn't have a QA department, and a lot of these things got lost. That's not going to change. I mean, that's going to change by the time that we start bolting on new features. So when we do this in the future, going forward for new adjustments to TMC 2.0, we're going to actually do something like this. Before we launch anything, Prague is probably going to be doing one of his medium-style dev blogs, which is what I linked on Twitter. If you missed the link in the chat, you can go to my Twitter and you'll see that I've linked it there. That explains all the UI UX concepting that went into this design. So what we're probably going to do to incorporate community feedback in advance is to post a blog like that, talk about it on Twitter, talk about it on the Meta Show, talk about it through as these things go. We'll say in about a month we're going to do a thing, let people know what we're going to do, and incorporate their design feedback such that there's no crazy surprises or anything like that for any major change we're making on the existing website. If we have a complete surprise or something like that, in terms of themes or anything like that, I don't see it being an issue. I think that most of the work in terms of changing the design going forward is always just going to be adding new themes and new opportunities. So that's it. That's basically where we are. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some chat now and see what people think in terms of questions you'd like to ask. You can ask me questions. You can ask Prague for UI UX. You can ask Jaron Kell for the actual dev and code stuff. And let's just go ahead and see what's up. People hate surprises. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. People don't like change, especially when they're happy about what they have. I'm not really sure what Victor Fell's point. Okay, so Victor Fell keeps talking about like misunderstanding what responsive design is and what it's not. I have no idea what any of these things are. When I say CMS, this, that, beep, boop, whiz gig, it's important to remember that the words coming out of my mouth about technical things are pretty much useless. The reason why we have Jaron Kell and Prague here is that they are actually professionals and know what the hell they're talking about. I couldn't really web dev my way out of a paper bag. My training as an attorney didn't really teach me that. So if you want to get mad at me for calling something a responsive design when it's not really appropriately responsive design, that means something else. I can't code, so there you go. Somebody's asking about a chance of a premium option with layouts that aren't formed around ads. I'd pay $5 a month for no ads to access a theme that's not designed around a large header and sidebar ads. Okay, so 2 points on this. One, where the ads are today is not where they're going to be within a week. I don't like the way that the ads are laid out currently. None of us do. We've just been putting out fires and triaging, so we're going to be getting to that. Two, I don't want to pitch a premium option to people until the site's not on fire. And I expect that the site will, I think it's probably going to stabilize in terms of what we're looking at for the news site in about a week to a week and a half. Is that a reasonable estimate, Tim, or is that crazy talk?
Yeah, in terms of conforming to the new layout and everything.
Yeah, like with the theme selector and
Yeah,
everything. Okay. So basically,
parts of it being done at the moment.
yeah, I mean, these guys have been working like crazy. It's been nuts. But basically, what I want to do before we pitch anything like a premium, like no ad subscription service, which is something we would like to do, is to draw a line in the sand once we're actually feature complete with the new site, to the point of saying this is what it was supposed to be when it launched. We now have all the stuff. We've incorporated our community feedback. Because I mean, let's be realistic. If I say I'm going to add a no ad subscription service when you guys are still going, dude, what the hell did you do to my favorite news website? There would actually be torches and pitchforks. So it's definitely Brainlink, something that we would be interested in doing, but I don't want to add a subscription ad-free service until the site is stabilized.
I'm trying to scroll back in the chat here to see what Victor Fell is talking about regarding responsive. Yeah, we're not saying dragging around a few modules on Drupal is responsive design. The ambition with the mixed grid is that it's easy to implement a bunch of modules that is ever changing on the front page. Every time you return to the front page, basically, the ambition is for it to look slightly different, slightly fresh, updated, all that, what have you. That is usually an advertising requirement. When they come to people like me, they want basically me to create a good platform for them to advertise in. What that in turn then creates for responsive for the responsive scope is that we have 5 or 6 standardized modules that we can then rearrange to fit into any of the viewports that we're developing for. And it's a very flexible grid system. It works pretty flawlessly down to 320, where the base unit is always going to be based on the 300 by 250 ad that we can't really change but have to incorporate anyway because money. That is basically our smallest given block in the grid puzzle. And responsive design, apart from the front page, applied to the article page, for example, is we're giving ourselves a lot of space on the sides, because really we don't want to put anything in there until it's actually article-related content, like big images. In the top, you can see in my post the breakdown for all the responsive sizes, basically how we try to accommodate and make adapt everything to the best possible scenario on a range of devices. So if you want to elaborate on your question about how we actually do responsive design, please do. But I think the examples I posted pretty much speaks for themselves. But yeah, the front page is always going to be a controversial topic. Some like it static, some like it different. It's just easy when we have building blocks to work with to adapt to a bunch of scenarios.
Actually, here's a question, something that I just thought of, because I mean, I don't really like, one of the reasons why Drupal is supposed to be awesome is it allows us to, like, be very customizable with these things. Would it be possible for us to kind of reverse engineer the TMC 1.0 design in a theme selector and just have something sort of like that in the 2.0 design as a theme selector? So if you like really hate the site, you can go, oh, here's my theme. Or is that not really?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fundamentally different tech choice with the previous TMC. It was panels-based. This isn't. We decided to simplify there. But yeah, I mean, the majority of those styles can be pulled over. So really, if people really want the old TMC back as an option, that's something we can probably do with a minminimum outlay of time.
Yeah, go look at the post on Medium, because I designed a grid with all the old tiles in there. So there's just, we had a grid of 3x9 static tiles. It looks all right.
Okay, that works. So we'll add that onto the list for a theme selector. We'll have a a throwback design, a hate change design, just like that.
Now, there's a question in the chat from Kalen13. Sorry if I'm mangling your name. Which ties into this too. It says, honest question, why does the actual layout differ so much from the proposed layout? And it's the same kind of thing we've been talking about time.
Because dev is hard.
Various complexities. I'm sorry?
Because dev is hard.
Yeah, well, so various things bit us in the ass, and we had to go with what we could go with to hit our launch, the date that we wanted to make it live. One of the things that we're doing, the major thing we're doing right now, is backporting into the design that you're looking at from Prague stuff, which is a superior sort of thing. But it's one of those deals where, when it was 4 o'clock in the morning and we had to get that thing going, we had to cut some corners here and there. And so that is something that is going to be, it's really a priority on our list. Really a priority.
Here's an interesting thing. So Astronautistic has a question, which is Subject tags. He'd like to be able to click like a T3 destroyer link at the bottom of an article and find other articles that involve T3 destroyers. I know that tagging is intrinsic to Drupal. Jaron,
Yeah.
you can...
Actually, to tell you the truth, that functionality is there. It's just not visible at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean,
and yes,
the designs you were given were sort of bare bone in that sense that we don't. Well, we haven't really accommodated for all that yet because
totally.
what I gave the dev team was heavy enough for them to implement, and we can definitely work that functionality back in there.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, as Mittens was saying, we're kind of professionalizing and really making things better and putting a lot of systems in place to prevent, the cowboy sort of amateur hobbyist sort of design. And so one of the things we're going forward with is really like, Prog's the visual guy. He's got to sign off on stuff, right? I don't want people pushing things live until we're sure that they look as best as they can be going forward. And so that type of modification, well, yeah, it's relatively easy just to turn on taxonomy terms on the node. We want to make sure that they look right, that they're in the right position, that they work right, and that they flow correctly with the responsive before we turn that stuff on. But that is very high on my list, yes.
So speaking of professionalizing the site, actually, there's another question here from HoboCrunch, which is, if we are professionalizing the site, are you guys planning to eventually remove articles such as the ALODs or general stupidity from the player base? Absolutely not. We love those articles. We love pointing fun at stupid crap that people do. When we say professionalizing the site, that doesn't mean that suddenly we're going to become stodgy and boring and stop mocking the stupid. Because, I mean, if you don't mock the stupid in EVE Online, what are you doing?
But it's an interesting point because that is also why it's in part a hard site to design for, because we, on one hand, have long format, brilliant articles about the EVE economy that requires a certain type of audience, a certain type of layout to be digested properly, and then on the other hand we have the bullshit that actually draws all the comments, and both have to coexist, and it's a really tricky scenario because on top of that we have our authorship that comes and goes, made as changes in EVE. There are articles written about some certain topic that is popular, and then that goes out of style. People go AFK, people log off, people win at EVE, and then they come back. So it's an ever-changing landscape. This site has really grown out of its grown out of proportions, really. It's a beast that we're trying to tame right now. So you have two excuses for trying to work away, feel our way forward. And it's going to be it's going to be quite the process, I think.
It's going to be. I mean, so in terms of like the difficulty of TMC 2.0 is that the vast majority of the work went into. It's like the tip of the iceberg, right? Like the basis of the site underlying it that nobody actually sees has changed radically from the hobby site that was basically slapped together by me and a couple other people working together way back. And like we started work on TMC 1.0 with its really archaic navbar design and the game selector on the side and all that other stuff was basically made by like 3 or 4 guys in starting in like April of 2012, right? And we have a lot of staff churn because we have mostly a volunteer contributor base, and that's changing. There's a lot less churn. We're sort of slimming down the staff, I guess you'd say, focusing on a few adults in the room. And so when we talk about professionalizing, we don't talk about changing the quality of the articles or the type of articles. What we're talking about is sort of just a business process, having a real dev team where, like Jaron says, if Prog is in charge of UI UX, he needs to sign off on things rather than just people like throwing crap at a website and, hey, why is this here? Oh, this guy over here did that. Wait a second, did he have keys to the server? Oh my God, what's going on, right? That's what we mean by professionalizing. We don't mean that we're going to stop running ALODs, because I love ALODs.
Kellen13, here's a specific question actually, why there's a jarring white border and gap between tiles on the front page. And the very first design I posted to Goonfleet was actually had tiles flush to the edges, and while it's visually pleasing, it's also rather hard to distinguish what you're looking at. It could be a collage, it could be, because some of the authors put pretty wacky thumbnail images in there, and there has to be a proper, strict way of distinguishing between what you're actually clicking, because, yeah. But if you want an example of how that looks, go look at the very first image in the top of the post I made about design.
Actually, we have an interesting question here from SapperGod, which is the dev team willing to take on Drupal experts from other alliances?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, please. We don't. So Drupal is like this very obscure thing. Like, I'm going to actually say here, or UI UX guy and want to help. So here's the deal. My philosophy with TMC is the same philosophy that I have in Goonswarm, which is basically find people who are more talented than me, smarter than me, give them power, shut up and get out of the way and listen to what they tell me. I don't care what kind of ticker you have. If you have professional credentials in Drupal and you're interested in helping out, if you are a professional UI UX guy, we are not saying that our team is the bestest best and that we are infallible. Again, it's all about data, it's all about metrics. If you have the chops and you're interested in helping out, send us information to staff@thematani.com by email, like who are you, what's your resume, show us your LinkedIn, show us your portfolio, and we will absolutely loop you into the team to help out. We're always looking for talent. It's hard to find people who are good at any of this. It's easy to find people who think they're good at it. Actually, that's not even true for Drupal. It's hard to find people who even know what Drupal is. I mean, let's be honest here. So yeah, send us an email, staff@thematani.com. We would love to have more talent. More talent is always good. It is. That's just how it is. So please help out if you're interested in helping out. We would love to have more.
And I definitely agree with that. Anything that comes in, I'll take a look at stuff, and we can bounce things back and forth and talk to people about it. Because in terms of, for instance, one of the things I need right now is front end help, right? Just production stuff. I'm willing to hear about anything because the ticker stuff doesn't matter to me, really. Mittens, does it matter to you?
No, not at all. We've never actually, we've never had a Goonswarm or CFC only thing here. There's a perception of that. It's funny because like whenever you start a space war, people like try to take the media and like associate that with the alliance or the coalition in some way. We've had people from PL, we've had people from a number of alliances that have been actively shooting us, working on the website. I don't really care who has what ticker as long as they do the work, they don't cause drama, they're not toxic. Generally speaking, people get let go from TMC for three reasons. One is their real life gets too busy and they leave the site. Two is they don't do the work, so we shoot them. And three is they're toxic and cause drama, so we shoot them. We run the TMC staff kind of like I run the directorate in Goonswarm, which is, we've got a no bullshit policy. But beyond that, it doesn't really matter. You can be from Northern Coalition Dot, and if you're a hotshot Drupal developer and you do the work, I don't care. It's not about spaceships. So there you go.
Well, there are no assets to be heisted, to be lifted from the operation. You can run off with the JPEGs, but that's not going to do you much. A JPEG stash.
Alrighty, so one final question here, because it looks like questions are petering out. Somebody's saying, how much progress are you making on getting non-EVA articles on TMC? There's a couple of games that we're really interested in getting contributors for. While we're also shaking up the dev process and relaunching the site, we're also shaking up our editorial system. You're going to see a lot of changes, and again, professionalizing the site over the next month or two. As a result, we are always interested in contributors. Again, like if you're interested in applying to work for the site, send us a ping with a writing sample to staff@thematani.com. We're interested in games that have always been interesting to our community. So sandbox, conquest-based PvP games, spaceship games. So Elite Dangerous, World of Warships, PlanetSide 2, H1Z1 is huge right now. All of these things, we've always had a lot of people who play World of Tanks. Now all of our Tanks players are sort of greedily looking at World of Warships. Star Citizen coverage is always great. Star Citizen is one of my favorite things to have people write about because people either love it or hate it, and everybody gets to read the article about Star Citizen, and then they get to argue with each other in the comments about whether Star Citizen is great or awful or whatever. And it's just like watching professional wrestling play out over a comments field. So, so that's basically what we're looking at. And I will, any last questions? We'll go ahead and see that. We'll give it another 2 minutes, and then we'll... Actually, no, it looks like we're done. People are late in asking questions, and we're just going to do this. So again, in sum, look for the theme selector coming up in the next few days. We will draw a line in the sand and say that the site is feature complete as far as the stuff that was supposed to be in launch, and we'll let people know when that happens with the theme selector. If you have ideas for the site and feedback, please go ahead and include solid feedback, because if you don't give us proper feedback, I'll just ignore it. to staff at thematani.com. If you're interested in helping out with Drupal or UI UX, or if you're a hotshot graphic designer or artist, we can probably put you to work. Again, staff at thematani.com. And theme selector ideas, if you want to send us advice as to what your idea of a really cool theme would be, again, staff at thematani.com. And one last time before we go, I'm going to go ahead and relink the TMC Design blog here in chat, because Prague goes through, most people haven't had a chance to read it yet because we're watching the show, but it really goes into a lot of the detail about everything that the UI UX went into, how we got here, where we're going. There's no doubt that the site today is not what that concept art looks like, but wait and see in a week and a half, and we'll see. We'll probably be there. Yeah, and the RSS stuff, Dirk, I do want to hit that. Jaron did briefly mention this as an aside. Part of the reason why things got down is we got DDoS the other day because we were kicking somebody's ass in a space war and they got angry, which happens. And so that was one of the reasons why the RSS feed was down. That's not something we can control. We are adding better capability, but we're not going to go into too much detail there. All right, guys, thank you for coming. Why don't Jaron, Prague, why don't you guys say goodbye, wave goodbye to everyone. And,
bye!
We will catch up with you guys later. Next time we do another one of these redesigns, we will have a roundtable in advance to show UI UX concepting, and people can talk about it, and we can avoid the whole surprising everyone and having things be on fire. Once again, we apologize for that, and we have learned our lesson. We won't do it again. We'll catch you guys later.